All right, guys, welcome back. Welcome to Duality 7X. I'm your host, Shiraz. I want to talk numbers. I want to talk big numbers, UFC, MVP, MMA. You guys all watched the UFC Freedom 250 White House card. It was an absolute doozy, guys. But looks like there might be some competition for Dana White, Paramount Plus, and that's Jake Paul, Nakisa Bidarian, and the MVP team when they pulled off their MMA event not too long ago. Now, Dana White, Dana White may have just pulled off the biggest MMA event in history. Not only did the UFC Freedom 250 draw a reported 17 million viewers across the United States and Latin America, but also delivered something we don't or we almost never see anymore in modern MMA. And that's a card that people genuinely can't stop talking about, especially after it ended, because there is a lot of drama that ensued after that card. And here's the crazy part, guys. While everybody is still arguing about the viewership numbers, Ronda Rousey is taking shots at the UFC, primarily Dana White and Hunter Campbell, uh, because she and Jake Paul are claiming that the biggest MMA promoter in the world is MVP Promotions, and social media now is trying to jostle with all of this news, and there's debates going on about who really won the ratings battle. Now, I think they're missing the entire story altogether, guys, because the UFC Freedom 250 White House card didn't just give Dana a huge win. It may have seriously cemented him as perhaps maybe one of the greatest MMA promoters of all time. That said, it is arguable, and I'm sure there's going to be debates about it online, but the event itself, I mean, in itself, may have completely reshaped the lightweight division as we know it. As you're aware, Justin Gaethje is now currently in legendary territory and reminded everybody why the UFC remains to be a dominant force in combat sports. So, anyways, guys, I want to kind of get into it. So let's dive right into this, and I'll kind of talk a little bit about the numbers and what this all means and what people are saying, because there is a little bit of I'm not going to say confusion or ambiguity, but there is a little bit of discrepancy in terms of what the numbers look like. But that said, Joe Rogan himself says that the UFC White House card actually had over 150 million viewers by Monday. So that means Paramount Plus downloads, according to Joe Rogan, jumped 276% from their prior 30-day average range, and their daily active users rose to about 34%. That's huge numbers, guys, without question. So that information immediately sparked comparisons to Ronda Rousey's recent comeback event on Netflix, and now people are starting to kind of compare the two and cross-reference with one another to try to see exactly who came out victorious. Now, I don't even know if that matters, because both events were absolutely fantastic in my opinion. Yeah, the MVP one, they had some old timers, got people that we loved, people of course like Ronda Rousey, Gina Carano, just to name a couple. But I mean, you had Nate Diaz on the card. Yeah, there was some old timers there, but still, it was entertaining. It was super, super entertaining. I liked it. I mean, I'm not gonna, hide the fact that I watched it from beginning to end. But I also like the UFC Freedom 250 White House card as well too. It was just as entertaining, guys. And of course, we're talking about all active fighters on the UFC 250 card. And each event, I mean, ended in a TKO. That's what I loved about it. I mean, it was great. It was great. Now I'll get into that. I don't want to kind of steer off of, the path here. I want to kind of talk about what I want to talk about, because according to Rhonda and Rhonda's supporters, her event in itself averaged a lot higher viewership in certain markets, which Ronda Rousey then took to social media and took shots against Hunter Campbell, UFC, Dana White, basically saying, hey, look at me. I mean, I generated this many views. And then Jake Paul jumped into the conversation and declared himself as the biggest MMA promoter in the sport. Now, if you're trying to be honest, guys, I mean, That's exactly the kind of reaction that Jake Paul wants. And any kind of numbers, any kind of anything to do with ratings that's favorable for MVP and kind of puts UFC, almost in the same breath as them is a win. It's a win for Nikisa. It's a win for the MVP team and Jake Paul because even if they were slightly under the UFC Freedom 250 White House card, it doesn't matter. That's still a win because, I mean, this is Jake's first event. This is MVP's first event, and they got unbelievable views just on that first event. So the moment people start debating this, that's when the news starts to get worldwide attention because then it goes global, it goes viral, and then everybody's talking about it. I mean, viewership numbers, guys, in MMA and combat sports matters, right? I mean, they absolutely matter because that's what's going to spark more hype and create the kind of fights that we want to see because everybody's going to want to outjostle one another to try to make sure that those views continue to stay with their promotion. Now, the UFC, I mean, this whole thing feels a lot like feels really different to me, guys, because both of these were like huge. And I mean, although promotions will continue with the UFC, I hear talks of another MVP MMA event coming up soon, but these were kind of like one-offs in their own way, right? I mean, I don't know. Are we going to see another UFC 250, a White House card? It won't be called UFC 250, but I mean, is this going to turn into an annual thing now? I mean, with the amount of money that they spent just trying to put all this together, the hype, the everything that went into it, it'd be hard to try to reciprocate that on an annual basis, especially considering how much money it's going to cost just to tear down the whole the claw and everything, the whole setup, and then fix the White House lawn and all that goes into it, guys. And I'm sure from a security aspect, it's a nightmare because there's a lot of folks on site right now that I'm sure that Homeland Security, the FBI, CIA, and all those with an invested interest do not want close to the White House for obvious reasons. Anyways, guys, we've seen massive promotions before that resulted in very disappointing fights, but neither of these were them. Both of these were winners in my book. But where I think it gets a little bit interesting for me is like going into this card, there were legitimate concerns about the matchmaking. And a lot of people were debating this. A lot of people were concerned that the matchmaking was a little off, right? A lot of fans felt that several fights were too one-sided. And I'm talking about UFC Freedom 250. Sorry, guys, I should have been a little bit clear. But like, for instance, you had Hawkett versus Lewis, right? You had Bo Nickel versus Dukakis, right? You had Marcio Rufi versus Michael Chandler. Sugar Sean O'Malley took on Ayman Zahabi. Now, in fairness, some of those concerns turned out to be quite valid. Several fights were extremely one-sided. I'll give it to you guys if that's how you felt. I 100% agree with you. And in some instances, I mean, sometimes the unexpected is going to happen, guys. I mean, these are fights. Anything can happen. I make the joke that somebody could slip on a banana peel and then you get caught with a overhand right hook and then it's done, right? But I mean, Ayman Zahabi fell a little bit flat. I'm a little disappointed. I thought he was gonna. I mean, he had such an amazing entourage. He had GSP in his corner. I mean, the legendary MMA fighter from Canada. But Iman came up short, and it's quite disappointing. Sugar, he just took over, and it was one-sided. Josh Hawkett, Lewis, I mean, that was such a disappointing fight. I would have loved to have seen Curtis Blades, uh, instead of Derek Lewis on that. I think Blades, should have got a rematch perhaps. That would have been a slobber knocker. It would have been a better fight. Lewis looked like he just wanted to curl up and go to sleep. He was just gassed out. I mean, this guy was a legendary knockout artist in the MMA, and he was completely flat. It was such a boring fight. Uh, the- Josh Hawkett walked out of there with like he didn't even break a sweat. I don't think, honestly, right? Bo Nickel Dukakis was awesome. That was great. But again, one-sided. So I get it. I get it where people are coming from. But for the very first time, guys, in UFC history, every single one of these fights ended by knockout right? Or technical knockout, right? So you got to think about that, guys. I'm not talking, there was no submissions, not one decision, not one scorecard. I mean, every fight ended violently. That's what you signed up for. That's what you wanted to see. Don't lie. Don't lie. So every fight, gave social media another clip to share where it sparked more and more discussions. Those discussions are ongoing, of course. Some fights are garnering a little bit more traction than others for obvious reasons. But I mean, that in itself, those stats that I just kind of rattled off completely elevated and changed the perception of the card itself. So what might have looked like mismatches to you guys on paper became jam-packed, action-packed viewing experiences, especially because I watched it, so I can tell you from my opinion, it was absolutely exciting. The pacing was great, Uh, y- the fans, they look so involved. You had a fan park, you know, a little bit south of the octagon, and that was very in a controlled setting. There was about 85,000 people there. They had a little makeshift octagon in the middle. They had giant screens. People were having a good time. There was food vendors, and there weren't any violent incidents of any kind. So I mean, look, that's quite rare to have, right? And especially to have all of that at the White House, where security is at its highest. That was incredible how they were able to pull it off. So, anyways, it was a perfect environment for the main event. We all thought that the weather was not going to be cooperative, and the weather happened to be cooperative. So that's good as well, too. But where the story starts to shift, okay, and despite all the discussions about Dana's his viewership records, Netflix comparisons with Jake Paul and the MVP team, scrap all that for a second. Just take a look at Justin Gaethje. Gaethje's was probably the biggest story of the night. I mean, he's pushing 39 now, I think, right? 38, 39, maybe, getting close to the big 4-0. But after his last, he was written off when he took on Paddy the Baddy, Paddy Pimblett, and everyone's like, nah, Paddy's going to walk all over him, and then he's going to compete against Ilya Topuria for the belt. That didn't happen. Justin Gaethje beat up Paddy the Baddy pretty bad and made it quite decisive that he was going to take on Ilya Topuria when Ilya Topuria returned back to the octagon, as he had to be away for personal reasons. And what a fight that was, guys. People are still talking about it. I mean, Justin Gaethje, you can't write him off just because of his age. He still happens to be one of the most dangerous fighters on the planet. And he's an active champion who some would say is past his prime, but he did absolutely incredible. He pulled off one of the biggest upsets we've seen in MMA history in quite some time. Okay. Not only did Justin Gaethje win, he became the undisputed UFC lightweight champion of the world. Undisputed. Undisputed. Okay. And what's remarkable about all of this is the fact that a lot of fighters never ever actually recover emotionally after coming up short once. This is Gaethje's. Look, Gaethje keeps coming back. This is his third attempt. And he was able to pull it off against perhaps one of the most dangerous fighters on the planet. And Gaethje continues to just challenge the status quo. He doesn't take easy fights. He keeps throwing himself in perhaps one of some of the most dangerous fights that could end his career, right? He keeps taking these risks and he keeps persevering. That's why the UFC continues to reward him. And eventually, June 14th, on Donald Trump's birthday, UFC Freedom 250, it paid off. It paid off dividends like you can't even imagine. I mean, like, this wasn't like an undefeated phenom taking over, or a veteran refusing to quit and he wants one last hurrah. There's something really powerful about a guy at his age who continues to dominate in the octagon at that kind of level, right? Especially in a sport where age is usually treated like a death sentence, right? I mean, at 39, people want him to just kind of walk off into the sunset, to retire, and that's it. But he's got the heart of a champion, and that matters. Timing matters, right? But there's one major problem now that UFC needs to figure out. what are they going to do? They got a huge decision that they have to make, right? What do you do with Ilya Topuria? Because even in defeat, Topuria remains one of the biggest stars in MMA, one of the most dangerous fighters on the planet. The man is still young. He's got so much left in him. He's young, he's marketable, he's got those crazy power shots that, you know, folded Justin Gaethje a couple times. You saw Gaethje just reeling in pain, lying on the canvas, but somehow Gaethje was able to put his fortitude together, and he was able to persevere through those difficult times. He even like commended Ilya Topuria after his victory, saying those are some of the most painful shots he encountered. So this wasn't a walk in the park for Justin Gaethje. So knowing that Ilya is capable of that kind of power, he will be back. And look, if you're the UFC right now, you're probably looking at the situation and looking at all these multiple pay-per-view opportunities, but now you got to really figure out how you play your cards. How do you match make so that all these UFC events coming up are going to be explosive one after another, right? And that's where the business side not only becomes challenging, but it becomes exciting and fascinating at the same time, because now the UFC suddenly has leverage, right? You got Justin Gaethje as a champion. That creates new matchup opportunities. Topuria is chasing redemption. Okay, that creates another storyline. Paddy the Baddy is still in the wings, and he wants another crack, another opportunity. Said he had an off night against Gaethje. That very well may be the case, because Paddy is also a rising up-and-coming superstar. How do you throw all these guys in the mix? And don't forget Arman Sarukian, who continues to stay active with Real American Freestyle Wrestling on the sidelines until he gets an opportunity to fight, right? So you got all of these potential fighters. I just named off a few. There's a ton more in their division that all deserve, you know, commendation and an opportunity to fight for the title. But how do you matchmake now, right? So anyways, that's a problem that the UFC has. It's not ours. And then I want to quickly talk about Alex Pereira, the Cyril Gane situation. I mean, controversial, yes, absolutely. I just did a whole video on this, guys. I mean, it was highly entertaining, without question. The fight was explosive, okay, to say the least. From start to finish, it was full of action. I mean, shocking. Let's be honest, quite shocking. I mean, fans, le- there's a lot of questions now about the officiating, about Herb Dean, and I mean, this isn't the first time we've had some controversy with Herb Dean. This has happened before as well too. Now, Pereira remains one of the biggest attractions still in the sport. He walked off at $10 million even after that brutal loss to Cyril Gane. Cyril Gane walked off at like 1.2 million. Love him or hate him, guys, Alex Pereira is going to be in the news for quite some time. He just relinquished his light heavyweight title to move up to heavyweight to become a three-time, three-division champion, the first time in UFC history. It didn't go his night on President Trump's birthday, but he is he is in the mix. We're trying to talk to Hunter and the UFC and the brass of the UFC to try to figure out a rematch. And he wants a rematch relatively quicker, because he realizes if he doesn't get this rematch right away, it's going to be very hard to get a rematch, unless, and of course, Cyril Gane perhaps maybe loses it along the way to another fighter, and then maybe either it'll push Alex Pereira further away, or maybe it'll bring him closer. So I don't know. There's a lot that's happening kind of behind the scenes, but again, Pereira is still and always will be probably one of the biggest attractions in the UFC. He sells fights, love him or hate him, people care, and that's a business attention. And I always say business attention equates to currency in this world, right? So here's my takeaway. It's very simple. The UFC got exactly what it wanted out of this fight, okay, out of this card. All right. The MMA got exactly what they wanted. Combat sports was also victorious as well, too. Fans from all kinds of genres of combat sports all came together to watch this event because it was historic. It wasn't just about the UFC or MMA. It was about an opportunity to watch some really good fighting, and that too on the south lawn of the White House. You know, this collaboration between the UFC and the White House worked. They pulled it off, and it was quite successful. Paramount Plus is also a winner in all this as well too. So the venue, the politics behind it, the drama, everything just adds to the fervor, adds to the marketing, adds to the hype, and the headlines will only continue to grow and reach all four corners of social media and all the different platforms on social media. And years from now, people are not going to be obsessing over the ratings between MVP MMA on Netflix or what happened with UFC Freedom 250 at the and with Paramount Plus. Nobody gives a crap. We as fans, we just want to see good fights, and both of these were really good. And more importantly, fans are going to remember the W's, right? And they're going to remember the knockouts, and the ambience, the atmosphere, you know, seeing their favorite celebrities, perhaps, you know, cage side. I mean, they're going to remember what happened with Justin Gaethje shocking the world. And despite the controversy with Alex Pereira and Cyril Gahn and the multiple shots to the back of the head, yes, that's an issue. Dana White addressed it as well too. But Dana said, you know, maybe that was where Herb Dean could have said, hey guys, give a warning to Cyril. Look, you got to stop this. Do it. He could have jumped in there and said, "Oh, whoa, whoa, slow down there, cowboy. Do this one more time. We're going to take a point off." He could have done that. He didn't, but whatever. It's done. It's done. It is what it is. But and now the global numbers have been released, and everyone's like all up in arms, like as to who had the most views and which platform was most successful and which promotion is on top. That doesn't matter. What matters now is what is Jake Paul, Nakisa Bidarian, and the MVP team going to do to sell out their next promotion and to bring in the same kind of views, if not more views, right? That's the game. People want more and more and more. That's what that's what these networks want at the end of the day. And so what is the UFC going to do to try to get that kind of garner, that kind of attention, that kind of marketing, that kind of hype in their next one? So anyways, guys, going back to Justin Gaethje, this man climbed a mountain at his age one final time, perhaps, and became an undisputed lightweight champion of the world. If I'm Gaethje, I might even retire. Yeah, retire on top, kind of like Terrence Crawford. You know, I don't know. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens, but it was definitely a memorable night for combat sports, for MMA, for the UFC, for all of us as fans. And now the entire sport is moving into a new chapter because of it. And those are my thoughts, guys. Those are my thoughts. I can't wait to see what happens next. I know there's going to be a lot of discussions about Cyril Gahn and Alex Pereira and what happens with these guys. Who do they fight next? Alex Pereira, I believe, has a 6-month medical suspension. He might be able to come back sooner, but probably be about 3, 4 months, 5 months, maybe till we see him again. And then it's going to be interesting to see with what the UFC does here and what Jake Paul does as well too. So at the end of the day, I think we as fans are victorious because we're just going to be able to see some pretty exciting stuff, exciting fights, and we're gonna have the opportunity to talk about it. So, all right, was UFC Freedom 250 the biggest event in MMA history, or did the MVP team have a better promotion? And what happens next? I want to hear your thoughts and comments, guys. Was Justin Gaethje's championship upset the real story of the night, or were you guys more into the Alex Pereira Cyril Gahn fight, or are you guys like Sean O'Malley fans, Roofy fans, Hawkett fans? What did you guys like most about UFC Freedom 250? I want to hear your thoughts and comments. Please don't forget to smash the like and subscribe, and hit the hype notification so that you could send this like out to as many people out there. The more you hit that like button, guys, YouTube will send this video to other people. If you don't do it, then we're kind of like in the dark, right? So anyways, guys, the pleasure was all mine, and I look forward to catching you guys in the next one.